This is the CNC Geekcast, the podcast where two guys with speech impediments talk about movies. I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Combs.
And on today's episode, we'll be talking about a hidden gem of a film, a low-budget film, Turbo Kid. We're going to be talking about the plot, the characters, why this movie works when it really shouldn't, and much more, so stay tuned!
We know this is a low-budget Canadian film, so there's a good chance a lot of y'all haven't saw this film. And they're all going to be spoilers in this episode. So if you haven't seen the film, get out there and see it. It's on Netflix, super easy to watch. So go watch it and then come back and listen to us talk about it.
It's only 93 minutes long, so it's not that long of a film.
No, it's really not. And this film was your idea to talk about. What inspired you to talk about this film? Heck, how did you even know about this film? Because I didn't know about this film.
Well, I think I saw a review on it from Reddit and Media, and I don't know how they found out about this film myself. But I saw it, and I'm like, you know what? I appreciate the film. I like the fact that it was paying homage to the 80s. Because there was a lot of aspects of this film that's just straight up 80s. You have the music, you have a lot of costume designs, and it seems like the acting was really cheesy. You even had an actor in this who did play in a lot of 80 films.
Yeah, he did. Michael Ironsides.
Yeah, he played in Top Gun, he played in Total Recall, which was actually 1990 to be fair. And also, you talked about how you liked the 80s type of films too, how you found those things to be fun.
And it's kind of topical, since Stranger Things 2 only came out like a week ago.
Yes.
So it kind of makes sense to still want to stay in the 80s a little bit longer.
Yeah. What about the plot of this film?
I'm still not sure how to sum up this plot. I watched it, and it's like things just happen.
This is true.
It doesn't really flow at all.
No, not from a plot standpoint. Well, actually, it's interesting. I mean, when the movie first started, it gives out this narration about how this film was based in what year?
Well, actually, it specifically says, because of war, the Earth is now a barren hellscape. This is the distant future. This is 1997.
That's funny.
And it was fantastic, because as soon as that opened, it let me know exactly what kind of film that this was going to be.
Oh, yeah. Because back in the thing was it? Because every film like what was it? Not Judge Dredd, but what was it? Demolition Man. Doesn't the future happen like sometime in 1997?
I actually don't know.
No, I don't know. Yeah, well, I know that there was a Terminator Judgment Day happened in 1997.
Yeah.
So and then you have like Blade Runner happened in 2007.
I think so.
2017.
Something like that.
Yeah, 7. So this is the 80 films always gave this. They always looked at the 90s as like, or the millennial to be like this terrible thing that was about to happen. They always pictured it in that sense a lot of times. So, but when it comes down to the plot, yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know what the plot of this film was, but at the same time...
It seemed to just be a generic, reluctant hero story, because our main character doesn't even have a name. He's just called The Kid.
Okay.
And his goal is just to survive. Like, this is a crappy future. You have the local warlord, Zeus, played by Michael Ironsides, who we've already talked about. And he's a loner. He's just trying to stay to himself, and he's trying to survive. And along comes this girl, Apple.
Which is an appropriate name because of what we discover later on in the movie.
Exactly, who's actually an android. She becomes his friend, and he has to rescue her, and incidentally, while rescuing her, he discovers the water source, because water is a precious commodity.
It is, which makes sense. And also, not only that, but the thing I like about he also met us this cowboy guy who was really good at arm wrestling.
Well, I guess he was basically like the sheriff.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought his character was, like someone needing to bring justice.
Yeah, and it was all like, of course, he was a classic, alpha male type of character who's like rugged and like I'm gonna do so and so, and I say cool things. And there's actually a line in the film where he says something like one of those cool poetic things, and the kid's like, "Is that true?" He's like, "No, it just sounds cool."
Yeah, I always love it when movies become self-aware like that.
Yeah,
it's just always fun to me. What did you think of the characters, though?
Well, the characters I found. I mean, to be fair, this is a character-driven movie, and I think that's what this movie. One of the things this movie shines at, developing the characters, because the kid was definitely one of those, like you said, electric heroes that did have his love, he did have his passion for things, and he enjoyed a comic book known as Turbo Rider, and that was one of the things that he loved, which goes back to the '80s thing, because in the 1980s you didn't have cell phones, you didn't have PlayStations, you had the Nintendo come out, but really you didn't have that much media. So comic books, throughout the ages was a big thing, especially when you see in the 80s films. Comic books was one of the staples in 80 films. So it made sense that would be there. And I really did like his character was kind of, shy and unsure and, trying to protect himself. And there's one more point where he ran into Apple, and I thought her character was really good in this film too. Because she is an android, but she was really perky and happy and bright and pleasant. And at first, you thought she was just like a bit odd.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you did. Even the way she's dressed.
Yeah,
and actually, her costume specifically reminded me of. I don't know if you remember this. There was an old cartoon called Jim and the Holograms.
I don't remember that. No.
No. Okay. I didn't figure you would, but it is quintessentially 80s.
Okay.
And even some of her dialogue, her speech patterns, made me think of that show, and it just further cemented this being the 80s homage movie.
Yeah. And what did you think of the guy with the blades and the skull mask?
That was a fantastic costume, actually. This film did have some decent costume design.
Yeah.
And I would actually kind of like to cosplay him.
That would be a bit scary, but...
I mean, I like that he had no name, no dialogue. He was just generic creepy dude, and it worked.
Yeah, it did. And, the thing I noticed about this film is we talked about how this film doesn't have that much plot, and the motivations for these characters also were almost non-existent, too.
Well, I guess Zeus was just generic villain doing generic villain things.
Yeah, because there's one point in the film where we find out that what he was actually doing is he was throwing on fights for entertainment, and whoever died, he took the body parts and he put it through a machine. He grounded the body parts, and apparently he went through this entire monologue about how he loves science and how the human body is made up of a gallon of water or something.
Yep, something like that.
And he basically, took the water and drunk it. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're taking dead body parts and you're producing water. Which reminds me of Soylent Green.
Actually, it was very reminiscent of the Twilight Zone too.
Yeah.
Which kind of feels like era shift, because Twilight Zone is quintessentially 50s.
Yeah.
But at one point they even say the water is people. And I'm like, wait.
Yeah, well, that's what this Charlton Heston played in a movie, and I think it was a 70s movie that was called Soylent Green. And,
are you sure?
Yeah, Charlie Sheen, not Charlie Sheen, but
Charlton Heston
was in a movie, and then at the end of that movie there was a line where he's like...
That was a Twilight Zone episode.
It was also a movie,
There was a Soylent Green movie?
Yeah, there was. I know there was a Twilight Zone episode, but I think that's what the movie was based off of. Soylent Green movie that Charlton Heston was in back in 1973 at the end of the film when he said, Soylent Green is made of people. And so when you go back to what Zeus was doing, he was making water out of people. So it's paying homage to those two things.
No, it definitely is, but you just blew my mind, actually. I never knew they actually made a movie of that Twilight Zone episode.
They did. I mean, now you want to see it, don't you?
No, I definitely want to see it now. I wasn't a big Charlton Heston fan, but
okay,
I still want to see this movie because I only know of the Twilight Zone episode. You're blowing my mind, Joseph.
Well, I knew something you didn't. I know I'm happy about it. But
miracles happen every day.
This is true. But going back, but sticking with it, what did you think of the entire 80s style of it?
Well, I really enjoyed that, just because it was really in the DNA of this movie. This movie kind of felt like Mad Max on bicycles.
Bicycles was actually funny.
The Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, or not Beyond Thunderdome, Mad Max Road Warrior, just with bicycles instead of cars. Which even makes sense if you think about the budget. They didn't have the budget for vehicles.
No, and I also found a scene funny where you have the cowboy guy who's tough and rugged, and found out that his brother got captured by Zeus, and he told his posse, saddle up! And so they got on the bikes and went off screen. I'm like, that's got this big rugged bad, this BA guy is like...
No, it was very funny. And I just love even the costume design, because I talked about Apple being reminiscent of Jim and the Holograms. When he finds this Turbo Rider outfit, though truthfully the Turbo Rider thing confused me.
Yeah, the character as a whole... It's confusing. Is Turbo Rider a real character in this film?
I don't entirely... I guess, because he was dead. I guess the comic was about the real person.
At the same time, apparently there was this I don't know what his samurai kappa to guy with the headgear. I don't know what it was that hat's called.
Yeah.
I don't know who this hunter was hunting the Turbo Kid. He falls into what seems to be a rocket ship.
Yes.
And this guy is having.
But he kind of thinks nothing of it when he falls in. Even the kid is just, well, this is a thing that happened. I want to put on the suit.
Yeah, it's like, that's Turbo Ride, and puts on the suit and something like, okay. And I want to kind of stick on this point because when the kid falls into this capsule, he sees a video of this general giving this guy orders saying, "You're going to be the savior. You got to help us. You got to save us." And of course, Turbo Rider, I think it's Turbo Rider, who was dead at that point, was a skeleton.
Yeah.
And the kid puts on the suit like you said, nothing happens. And I don't like when movies do that. I don't like when movies build up to this big point of this big discovery and the actor just nonchalant, just push it to the side. And I don't like that, but if this is how a lot of 80s films did that, then it's in keeping of the DNA of the film.
I don't know that it is, though. It seems like lazy storytelling. It does.
Me too, yeah, and I do agree with that. And to me, that was confusion about it. But once they got that, even the power glove, because they had this gauntlet that shoots out in a beam of energy, was again, I don't know how that thing happened, just movie. But even that looked 80s.
No, it actually looked like the power glove from The Wizard.
Yeah.
Like, I know that was obvious. I know that was obvious and intentional, but it just did. And then the Viewmaster that kept making an appearance, one of those things that you kept flipping it.
Yes,
showed you the images. That was quintessentially 80s.
And the graphics, it's a low budget film, and the graphics, you could tell, was low budget, but it worked for this film, too.
It really did, because first off, this film didn't take itself seriously at all. This was obviously a comedy while being a sci-fi action film, a sci-fi action comedy, if you will.
Another thing that didn't take it seriously was the gore. This film was gory, because this film is rated TVMA, and there's a reason for that.
Actually, I love it just because I didn't expect it. I didn't really know what I was getting into with this film. Joseph just recommended it, and I was like, "Hey, sure." I know nothing about this film, and then all of a sudden, he gets the power glove, and the dude just explodes into little hamburger-like pieces, and I'm like, "What the crap?"
Yeah, and you can see, and this film is really, like I said, really gruesome. You have blades that are actually cutting people into pieces. And you have, heads being sliced open, and once, it's like The Evil Dead, when you cut somebody, you have blood splitting everywhere.
Yeah, and way too much blood for it to be anywhere close to realistic.
I agree, but the thing I did like about it is even though that the gore was over the top, it did make sense that if you stab someone in the body, it would puncture them.
It would, but the person's not going to bleed like that.
No, I agree with that.
And especially at the end with the umbrella. That was the weirdest thing I've probably ever seen in a movie.
No, kid stabs the skull-faced guy with an umbrella, then opens it up, and the guy splits into two, and he opens it up. Like, that wouldn't happen.
I don't think an umbrella has enough power to do that.
No, it doesn't.
I'm just saying.
But still, it was fun. And then at the end of the movie, when they had that final battle, which was a bit disappointing, because all it was people punching one another. At
the same time, the movie didn't have enough money for fight choreography. I can overlook it, a lot of things like that, when they're obviously having so much fun with it.
Yeah.
That's actually what I like about a lot of indie films. They may not be great films, but it's obvious that they were a labor of love, a labor of passion. And it kind of just shows through sometimes when everybody just has so much fun with it.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that when it comes to low-budget films, because you don't have all these bells and whistles to work with, it does force a lot of times filmmakers to think around the limitations. How are we going to accomplish this? How are we going to accomplish that? Even when you don't have all of these big things, because you have a lot of low-budget films that are really good films, and yet you have a lot of high-budget films that are just pieces of crap. Like, even in Resident Evil, all these resources, still crap.
I love the Resident Evil films. Sure.
I know you do. Okay, Blade, they're not Blade.
I said I love them. I will acknowledge the crap, but I actually love them.
Oh, Ghost Rider. That's crap.
I've never seen Ghost Rider.
Oh, well, it's still crap.
Okay.
It's a big budget film. Or Waterworld, for example. Considered to be one of the highest grossing.
I like Waterworld. Waterworld is an underrated film.
It's crap.
Waterworld is underrated. I don't care what you say.
Okay,
I actually
fine.
like that film.
Okay, fine. But the thing about this film is, we talk about the characters, we talk about the 80s style. When you think about it in the plot, when you think about it, this film shouldn't be working.
No, it shouldn't. The characters, their motivation is kind of iffy. The plot is convoluted, and things just kind of happen. There is no narrative flow to this movie.
Yeah.
But all in all, I actually want to watch it again, and I want all of y'all to watch it, and I want to show it to my friends. I don't understand it.
I don't understand why either. I guess it has to do with the nostalgia aspect, because we talked about this when it comes to Stranger Things. Stranger Things is really popular. Really popular. I think it had like
Stranger Things is also just good.
Yeah, no, I was getting to that, but it did such a great job of recapturing the '80s idea and style. Kids being on bikes, good coming to the age story, and a lot of it you can find those things in this film.
No, you definitely can, and I think it's just enough for this film to be fun. Mm-hmm. Like, I actually had a lot of fun watching this film, because, I mean, the actors aren't great. I don't know if it's the way it was written. I don't know if the way the actors were written to be more awkward. But they're not doing a particularly great job, but it seems like they're having fun with it, and that definitely counts for something. It goes back to what I was saying about it being more of a passion project.
Yeah, I think it does really helps strengthen the film when the filmmakers are basically saying, look guys, we're just having fun with this, so you have fun with this. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to... And we talk about this in Total Recall. It's like, sometimes it's okay just to not take the film. We're not taking this film seriously, so have fun with it. And we acknowledge that, and this is the point of the film. So it gives audiences the permission to be like, oh, it's over the top, and it's, yes, cheesy, no plot. Characters was, some almost 3D, but more 2D than 3D, but still, have fun with it. Unlike movies like The Room, who actually thought it was taking itself seriously, but we know it wasn't, or Trolls 2, which is like, it's taking itself seriously. It's not, we still laugh at it, but because of how it failed.
And this film did have a lot of cleverness. As I said, it did feel like Mad Max on bicycles, because if you think about Mad Max the Road Warrior, like, gas is the scarcity in that movie. They're trying to find ways to get more gas. They're going to these old wreckage. They're fighting over it. In this movie, it's just the same thing, just with water. And I kind of like that idea of it.
I do think that the water thing would be far more of a scarce thing than gasoline. Or maybe they'd be on the same thing. But water is definitely more important than gas.
No, definitely.
And...
as I said, I understand why they did that from the budget perspective. They didn't have enough money for gas, and they didn't have enough money for cars. It actually works really well. And I also like how clever the film was in one regard.
Okay.
The fact that the android's name was Apple.
Yes, definitely.
I was watching that, I was like, wait, that's actually really clever. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, in this film, the apocalypse happened and technology stopped in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
So that would mean that Apple was the technological behemoth. So it makes sense for an android to be called Apple.
It's like in Blade Runner when you have these Atari signs.
Yeah.
Being all in highlight. It's like in the 1980s, Atari was a thing. In like when Blade Runner 2049 came out, Atari is not leading the way as it was in the 80s. Mm-hmm. That would have been Nintendo. But in the framework of the universe, it just makes sense, and they continued on with that.
Yeah.
And the same thing with this, because in the 1980s, Apple was the thing. It was leading the way with personal computers, and so when it's like the wasteland of 1997, it kind of makes sense that if you're looking from an 80s standpoint, no one saw Microsoft coming into the picture.
But at the same time, we've talked about this film being so much fun, not taking itself seriously. Was there anything you just thought was too over the top?
To me, I did honestly thought that, I didn't really enjoy the gore that much, to be honest. I mean, I knew the gore was over the top, but still, it's like, yeah, I still don't like it, though.
Okay.
I mean, guts are being pulled out, and the bodies are happen to fall on top of other people, and people's faces being pulled out. I'm like, I don't know. It's like, still, I know it's over the top, but still, like, too much.
I can actually kind of agree with that. It isn't the bicycles. It was at the end when he does the umbrella thing and it just starts raining like body parts. I was like, okay, this is actually a little bit much.
Yeah. And also when he just decides to leave and I'm going to visit the wasteland. Well, what? Nothing's out there. I know. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't know why you're leaving then.
Yeah.
But the movie has to end on a high note, and, I guess.
I know. It's just, we've talked about how much fun it is. Do you think it's enough for a movie to be fun? Like, or do you demand that a film that you love has some objectively good parts?
That's a very good question, because there's some films that I just We talk about it on the episode, and we talk about how a film should be edited and a film should be written. But for me, there's some films where I don't hold that film to the standard. I accept it for what it is. And it's one of these films where it's like, yes, the plot's not that strong, but I can accept it because of what it was trying to get at and what they were trying to go for. And they accomplished it. And a film like this, we talked about this, they did a great job of recapturing the 80s. And when a team of filmmakers are able to do that, that's talent. I find that to be a good job, just a good job of accomplishing your goal, because to recapture something like that is in itself a skill. And I do appreciate the film for being able to do that.
And I even thought, like we've talked about the 80s, how it recaptured the 80s in regards to the character design and in regards to some of the props. But I also think it did a good job capturing the 80s in regards to editing and the shot makeup. It actually felt like I was watching an 80s film. Even my roommate, she didn't know anything about this film. I was just watching it at my house, and she came on the TV. She was like, "When was this movie made?" And it was like 2015. And she was like, "Really?"
Yeah. And this goes, and at the same time, and this is one thing I appreciate about Stranger Things, because when you think of the cinematography in that, modern movies have modern cinematography. Well, the cameras always seems to be moving, and it's kind of somewhat shaking, and in a tense scene, it's going to be somewhat just moving back and forth. And I'm just like, camera, stay still. And Stranger Things did that, and there's a rule in editing where it basically goes only cut when you have to. And the thing I appreciate about Stranger Things is that you could have a shot of a living room and someone is walking into the living room. They would start on one side of the film or room, and they would pan across the room, setting up an atmosphere, and that's when you know that the room is empty. And then it just pans to the door, and people come in, and it would follow the person, then cuts to a forward shot of that person. And the same thing happens here, and the camera was straight during that time. Now, they did do some creative things with the camera in the sense of the camera angle and how it moved. And it moved from, it may move from, on the top of the character, and then it may move upside down, and then show the characters from that angle. But for the most part, it stayed still. Mm-hmm. And this film did the same thing. And me and my friend talked about this when it comes to Blade Runner. It did the exact same thing. Blade Runner is supposed to be a visual experience. And they basically just shot the camera and let you just, it didn't move. And you were allowed to enjoy the scenery and enjoy the shot for what it is. And the 80s did this. And it harkens back to a more simplistic time of cinematography in movies. And I appreciate that because of it.
A lot of that was probably technological limitations, though. It's probably them wanting to do that. But also, they didn't have the money for a lot of rigs. Because this, again, I cannot stress this enough. Mm-hmm. This film appeared to be made on a budget of what you would find in your couch cushions.
Yes, it seems, because this movie, and actually this was really fun. This movie starts out with a company called Epic, the #1 producers of Laserdiscs. Yeah, and I'm like, the minute I saw that, I'm like, okay, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
I like the things like that and the 1997 thing because it sets the tone.
Yeah.
Because the film kind of started off more serious, and had you bought into it, you wouldn't have enjoyed it as much.
Yeah. I mean, even the Epic logo was like an 80s graphics font, something that you see in the 80s. And it's not that advanced. The artwork is 80s, and the resolution is 80s, and everything does a great job of promoting. Even the sets in this seem like the 80s sets, and everything in those sets, all the small little bits and pieces, is 80s style.
Yeah.
And I think it won a couple awards at Sundance.
Sundance 2015 was where this movie gained some acclaim. Mm-hmm. And it's part of the reason this film was picked up by a studio to gain more wide distribution. It's part of the reason it's even on Netflix, I guess.
Yeah, and there's a lot of studios attached to this film. I saw 5-6 studios, and I thought to myself when I saw that, when you don't have enough money from one studio, just get all studios.
Yeah.
And even then it's still low budget.
Yeah, it's like each studio kicked it $1,000. Here you go. Yep.
So, but is there anything else you want to talk about this film? Because
actually not really. I can't think of much else to talk about. This film's only 93 minutes. The plot is paper thin. Mm-hmm. The characters are paper thin.
Yeah, and then the thing that really, like I said, how this film is an 80s style movie, and that's exactly what you're going to get, an homage to the 80s. The music was 80s, the graphics was 80s, everything was, and it was a really great nostalgia trip. But now that we're done talking about this movie, we have something excited to talk about next week. And yet there's hesitation in your face.
No, I am so hesitated.
And excited.
I've hated. No, I don't know. It's more ambivalence. There was never a chance of me not watching this film. Mm-hmm. Any chance of me being excited has been sucked out by the dang marketing.
And the movie we're talking about next week is Justice League.
Like, I'm excited for this film. Mm-hmm. I'm getting to see Cyborg. I'm getting to see The Flash. I'm getting to see
Aquaman. B.A. Aquaman.
Yeah. Things I've never seen on screen before. I should be jumping up and down for this movie, but instead I'm like, please, I'm just
throwing spoons at the screen.
I'm just praying to all the gods and all the religions, like
even the great flying spaghetti monster.
It's like, please don't suck, just please,
for the love of gods.
Yeah.
So no, I'm excited about this film, and simply because I did feel like Batman was better developed in Batman vs. Superman as a character than Superman was. Even though that I understand it's not a high bar, I just felt like, and then it was Batman. It was more of his film than it was Superman, unfortunately. And then Wonder Woman, really good film, really good character development, and because of that, you have already two in my opinion. The two well-established characters so far in the DC universe leading the way, and the one that really sucked, they killed off. And I know that people feel like, oh well, you know what, that's they killed off Superman too soon, and I agree with that. But at the same time, it kind of feels like that wasn't really Superman anyway. I don't know, and it's like that's not who he's supposed to be. And so I hope that when they bring him back, they retcon his character and say, sorry, that wasn't the real Superman. This is the real Superman.
Save a little bit of this for next week, Joseph.
Yes.
I got you started.
I know.
So save a little bit of this for next week.
I will. So, but that's the reason why I'm excited. So, there's a lot to look forward to.
So next week's just going to be Justice League. You know how we each feel about it? Mm-hmm. I can't wait to talk about it, because no matter what it is, I'm going to have a lot of opinions.
Yes, or we both do. But until then, I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Combs.
And you've been listening to the CNC Geekcast.